Welcome to the Surgeons in 3D Printing podcast. And as you all have been following our orthopedic surgeons since the last few episodes, today I have with me a shoulder surgeon all the way from the University of Zurich, Switzerland, Dr. Mohy Taha. Welcome, Dr. Mohy.
Dr. Roshi, thanks for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to be on your podcast and social media channels.
Yes.
I see you have been very active for the last months, and I really like and appreciate your engagement.
Thank you. Dr. Mohy, I love your tagline. It always seems impossible until it's done. And so that's amazing. And that's so true. So today we are speaking about 3D printing and technologies that can be used in healthcare like AR, VR, mixed reality. So with that, I would like to ask you, how did you start your journey of implementing all of those technologies into your surgical specialty?
Thanks for that question. It is very interesting to see the development of the whole technology supporting us. So the first time it was during my training where we saw the patient-specific instrumentation coming. So that was back in early days. I started my training in 2009 as a resident, and pretty much 1 or 2 years later, it started. At that time, we had 2D planning tools for the preoperative planning of our hip and knee prostheses, which are still exist, and lots of people still use the 2D. So it's not that they are not out of date, but we didn't have that much 3D understanding of the anatomy, of the technology, of the why should we move to 3D instead of 2D. But if you look to yourself and to our eyes and how we function in our everyday activities, we actually function 3D. So everything around us is 3D. And then we try to convert this in a 2D X-ray or a 2D CT, and we try to convert this in our brain to a 3D. Yeah. And it was a great game changer, and time came and said, hey, we can get you specific guides which are 3D, or people started also at that time with navigations. And started like, okay, we can get a computer navigation on the robotic system. And it was a very advanced trend where everybody said, hey, this is the future, we're going to do it. And then we started doing navigation. And then the setup was a bit complicated, a bit hard, a bit lots of cameras, 4 cameras, sterile field, non-sterile field. Installation took time. And as you know, operating time is expensive. And when you, even if you're not operating, but preparing for the operation, you take like 30 minutes for preparation, it is expensive time. Definitely. And that's why people moved again away from computer navigation. Now we see trend coming back with robots. We said, okay, maybe the robot's gonna help us and do this. And where I personally see the future going is in the holograms and in the mixed reality, because you solve a lot of problems. You don't have these installations. You just put on your head and you start operating. So there is no time needed during the operation, before the surgery, which you get delayed. So you start your regular program as usual and you move on without any installation required. One thing. Second thing, you have no problem with sterility, so you don't have to worry about it. Everything is in your head, so everything else stays the same. And then you get some more advantages, which is functionality of the HoloLens or the goggles you are using. You can do live streaming, you can have external support, you can this dynamic assist, you can contact other people, you can take pictures, you can take videos. People see what you see. One of the main problems we have in life surgeries, one of the problems we have in life surgeries is your head is always in the way. Because you have the camera here and you try to operate, so you have to see, and then people around you still have to see as well. And
you're struggling. Everybody's struggling hard.
Everybody's struggling. And in the shoulder, it's like the glenoid is very small. So everybody's looking at this 3 times 3 centimeter place. So it's a bit tough. And that's some of the add-on values of this technology. So it's not just the planning is very important, and getting the hologram, understanding the 3D anatomy, changing, having the shoulder in your hand, showing the patient their problem, making them part of it. They own their shoulder, they own the problem. We are just helping them. So you give them the responsibility, you show them their problem. They are very happy. I mean, my patient, when I show them before the operation how does their shoulder look like from inside, it's much easier for them to understand that me showing them a CT scan, which is like 2D.
They don't even understand.
No, they have no idea. They're like, it's nice that you show us. I don't understand what you're saying.
They just have to nod with you that yes, there is a problem, but they don't really see it.
We don't really see it. We just trust you. And that changes, like, okay, now they see it. They see it like you see it. This is a 3D, and you have that, you spare some time. When you do the 3D printing, you have to send it, you get the 3D part, so there's a delay. But when you have the hologram and you just export it and you have, so once you have the hologram, there is no time delay. You have the hologram on your computer and then you have it on your HoloLens or whatever
headset you're using.
So this is my feeling about this technology and how there are some problems which we see in every day, which could be easier.
Also, so where did you start?
I started actually not very long time ago. I started in February, where I got my HoloLens.
Right.
And that was I just had it, and then I packed it out and spent one weekend playing around, getting the gestures, understanding how it works. And I can say it's pretty simple, similar to a smartphone. So you have an app store. Instead of touch screen, you have the whole screen in front of you, and then you press on it, you touch it, but just in the air without a physical screen. And my kids love it. I mean, they're 10 and 12. So they started putting it on and using it and playing around with it. So it is really a simplified way of interacting with holograms, putting them in your life, changing. It is intuitive. Everybody, we all had like our Nokia smartphone and all of the buttons, and we were shocked when the first iPhone came out, and like, oh, how are we gonna use this? There's no buttons. I mean, it doesn't work. And when you had your BlackBerry, you could write everything on the keyboard, or the Nokia communicator 9110 and 9210. So we were this lucky generation when we showed the development from analog telephones, where you had the telephone in you with that round.
Exactly. I remember that as well. So then what are the specific cases where you found that, this technology really helped you? Like in your specialty, there must be certain cases which would be really difficult and kind of simplified your journey doing those cases.
Definitely. For me, the main value is with arthroplasty, and especially with deformed glenoids. So when you have a glenoid which has a big retroversion, where you really want to understand the retroversion of the glenoid, the anatomy, how much bone stock you have, we do allografts. So we augment the glenoid. We take part of the head of the patient and then fill that defect on the glenoid. And this is all like 3D forms and 3D defects. And you want to fill them also, and you want to make your allografts 3D. So
exactly, they fit
it's
in
much
properly.
easier. Yeah, I mean, for me, it's much easier to look at it and see it, and then I can replicate it. But if you show me a picture with like 2 dimensions, one is axial and one is coronal, and then I have to process this in my mind and try to get it correct. We used to do it. I mean, it's not impossible, but it's just much easier to see a 3D and reproduce a 3D form. So while doing difficult arthroplasty cases where you have big retroversion, where you have missing bone, when you have to do allografts, in these challenging cases, it's very beneficial. And in simple cases, for the simple planning. So 3D planning is just, it's a different story than the 2D planning.
Yeah,
Um,
definitely.
one problem in shoulder surgery is when you open and you do the delta pectoral approach or direct delta approach, you just see the glenoid. So you only see the face of the glenoid. You don't see the whole of the scapula, you don't see the rotation, you don't see the version, inclination. So you don't really see it intraoperatively. So you cannot really appreciate the anatomy till you,
Holistically.
yeah. So we used to see the CT and think like, okay, we're gonna do this. We did a study, me and Dr. Cunningham, about the Friedman line, which we use for the reference while planning on 2D CT. And then we
Yeah.
took lots of CTs and we did a 3D reconstruction to see, to understand the anatomy of the vault of the glenoid. And we saw that was published in 2018. And we saw that time as well that already the Friedman line is not accurate with the vault of the glenoid. So it is an aiding tool, but if you have a 3D, then it's different. At that time, they didn't have this technology. So
Right.
they didn't have a 3D. So we had only to work with 2D. And if you have a 2D, then it's pretty fine to use the Friedman line. That's what you have.
Yeah.
But once you have a 3D, you can really see where the vault is, where the whole glenoid is going, where the retroversion. So it helped us understand the anatomy more and understand the placement of the components correctly. The better the placement of the component, the higher the survival rate.
Right. So entire visualization changed, I mean, completely. Exactly. So it is usually said that we're just scratching the surface at the moment because technology has a lot that can, if we use it well, we can really explore more. So what do you think when somebody says, just scratching the surface? How do you see it coming?
I totally agree. And that's why I see we have to dive in. So now we are definitely on the surface. And that's why we need lots of early adopters. We need lots of people to use it. We need lots of feedbacks. This is an evolving technology. So I totally agree. We're at the very early beginning of this era. Yeah. And with time, we will see if this era is going to continue and
how far it goes.
prove itself helpful for everybody. Because also one part, I mean, I live in Switzerland, you are now in England, but we know from background, from India, from Egypt, from other countries where the costs are very high for robotics or for navigation.
Very true.
This is a major issue. And if you have a simple tool which you can put it in your head, and you don't need any infrastructure from the hospital, you can operate anywhere in the world with any infrastructure, and you still have your 3D planning in your head, you have your hologram, you have your guides, you have a lot of information available in your head, and you can connect and communicate with experts from all over the world, no matter where you are, as long as you have a hotspot from your mobile phone or any internet connection.
That's not a problem now.
Yeah, so I think every hospital has at least one mobile phone which has a hotspot.
Yeah, true.
And
so.
if you have this, you can connect to anybody with your HoloLens or with your headset and transfer knowledge, help and assist each other, and do better quality, understand more anatomy of your patient, help your patient no matter where. So with the time goes on, I mean, HoloLens 1 was more expensive. Now HoloLens 2.
It will come down.
Sometime soon there will be HoloLens 3 and 4, and the costs are gonna drop down. Yeah. The more people use it, it's gonna be less expensive and it's gonna be affordable for many companies.
And I think it is so simple to install. I mean, you don't need anything. It's just on your head. And I think any surgeon can use it. You just have to kind of dive deep, as you said.
Exactly. So, and it's a matter of like spending one weekend with it, like when you buy a smartphone for the first time and we all hold it in our hand and we didn't know where to start and what to do. And okay, where's the home button? There's not even a home button.
True. So on the contrary, people also say that surgical skills will not be polished if you start using technology. Do you believe in that? Or what is your take on that?
I see actually it could be very supportive. I mean, we have a lot of simulation programs for arthroscopy simulators, which help us improve our skills. And there have been lots of studies which have shown the learning curve. It is significantly improved comparing two groups, one using simulation and one not using simulation. I mean, you can imagine if you are getting into a flight and your pilot is flying for the first time and he has never been to an airplane before. I don't think you're gonna fly with him. You will be very happy about it. And you can imagine a surgeon is a pilot. So to get that, to be a pilot, you need to do a lot of theory. So you study, you go like 6 years to medical school. And then after that, you need to go to training. So you have like between 3 and 6 years of specialty training. Then you have your subspecialty, which takes 1 or 2 more years. And during this time, you have a lot of courses, cadaver courses, which helps you. Then you have a lot of simulations, computer simulations for arthroscopy. You have even operating softwares to simulate operations. Also, even some companies for their implants, they have provide these virtual reality platforms. So it is about the pilot. He has also to stay in the simulator. He doesn't just count the hours of flying real flight. They do count the hours flying a simulator. Training is training. You need both, and having a simulator supports you and adds more hour to your training. So there is no contraindication. Using technology helps you and supports you. And a pilot who flew 100 hours or a pilot who flew 200 hours, 100 hours in real flight and 100 hours is simulator, per definition has more experience.
Very true.
So I see
there have
it
been
is
studies,
supporting
definitely.
us.
Yeah.
And you can use it also, the HoloLens and holograms, to teach anatomy, to teach medical students, to train people. You can have more than one people simultaneously doing the same cadaver. I mean, it also saves time and saves money. You don't have to buy all of the cadavers. You can add hours on cadavers. You can add hours on simulation. You can add hours on holograms. So I think it is going to be supportive for education and training, understanding the anatomy, because we all studied anatomy in 2D books as well. Although our anatomy is 3D. And we had to think like, okay, which muscle is above which and which is behind which and how to do it. There was no apps when I went to medical school.
True. At times we had to just learn it, and I think we saw it later. Like you learned it first and you saw it later. So those were also the things that happened.
Yeah. And you had to go to cadavers and look at the cadaver, and then you see you had the book beside you and the cadaver beside you. You had to look at, okay, yeah, that's what they meant. It goes above, behind. So you had to do a lot of
brainstorming and understanding.
And bridges and like, okay, what is behind and where is before, and it starts behind and turns in front of, and it was very complicated learning anatomy. And when you see it 3D, it just makes it easier. It's not like you don't have to study anymore. You will have to study anyway, but
it makes it very interesting as well. So with that, I'd like to ask you, could you tell the listeners how they can be benefited by your platform, which is My Fellowship? Because I really like the platform. I went there and saw it. It has amazing information and resources. I would like you to reveal that to my listeners about your book and any of your upcoming endeavors.
Sure, very glad to do that. My fellowship as a platform, it started because of a problem I faced myself. So it was the whole value of my fellowship, and the whole goal is building bridges between fellows, future fellows who are looking for fellowships, and fellowship providers. So when I went to Australia, before I went to Australia for my fellowship, I was in Zurich in my training as an orthopedic surgeon, and then I wanted to do a fellowship in Australia. At that time, there is nobody else I knew who did a shoulder and elbow fellowship in Australia. So I was the first one. So I had to find out, okay, how does the system work? Which fellowship? I went online, and there was like 100 fellowships available in Australia, accredited from the Australian Orthopaedic Association. So I traveled there. I took 4 weeks off. I took the whole family. We went on road trip. Australia as a continent. So
Right.
I went from Sydney to Brisbane, flew to Melbourne, and then came back to Sydney. I had like 13 interviews.
Okay.
I had per day visited 2 hospitals to be able to talk to the fellows, to talk to the fellowship providers, to understand the system, and to decide for myself, okay, where should I apply for a fellowship? Which program suits my needs? Because on internet, when you read, they are all similar, more or less similar. There's no difference.
Confuses you the more. I mean, there are so many resources now. It is more confusing.
It is. And then, okay, and then I was there. And then I decided out of these 13 interviews, I applied only in 4 fellowships because these were suiting my needs and the needs of the fellowship provider. Then I went back, and then 2 years later, I went to the fellowship, and then I started meeting the other co-fellows. And here came the idea of my fellowship. I found a lot of people who were frustrated with their fellowships. One coming from England, he had to break his fellowship after 6 months and go back. He was staying for 1 year, so he moved at 6 months. One other one coming from Argentina, he changed the fellowship after 6 months, and then went to another fellowship program. And then when I started asking them why, because the expectation of the fellowship provider and the expectation of the fellow who was looking for a fellowship were different.
Right.
So there is no right or wrong. It's just like, this is a system, and I come with some different expectation, and the reality is different. So I get frustrated, and vice versa. Fellowship provider, he expects X, Y, Z from the fellow, and then fellows comes and he doesn't provide these. And that's where I came with the idea, okay, why don't we connect the fellowship providers with the future fellows who are looking for a fellowship, and with people who have done this fellowship as well, who can give their feedback, and you can contact them directly and ask them, okay, how was your experience? Because a fellowship, living in a different country, is not just the training and the position itself, but also, where did you get a car from? Where did you live? Where did you find the apartment? Where did your kids go to school? How did you find the right school? There are millions of questions which the fellowship provider himself cannot really answer, because it's very specific for somebody coming from a foreign country, coming there. And to provide this information, I decided to do this, my fellowship platform. So we partnered with the Swiss Association of Residents and Consultants in Basel. I was working at the University of Basel at that time, and we initiated this project with 7 other fellowship-trained surgeons, because we had all the same problem, searching for a fellowship, and we didn't know where to start, and there was no sufficient information. And that was the bridge we tried to build. So anybody who is looking for a fellowship, or who is providing a fellowship, he has a fellowship, he can put it on the platform. Platform works like a Wikipedia. So anybody who has information about a fellowship can add it to the platform. Platform is for free. We don't charge fellowship providers or fellows, because this is not the value. The value is transferring information. And we don't provide fellowship itself. So my fellowship as a platform is just a Wikipedia. Everybody adds his feedback, like Google feedbacks.
Wow. So it is basically for orthopedic surgeons only?
We started with 10 fellowships in shoulder surgery.
Right. Okay.
And 2 years, 1 year after we started, now we have 29 specialties, and we have more than 1,500 fellowships in different specialties. And there are 32 countries where we have fellowships, and we have subscribers from 162 countries. So
amazing.
We started very, very limited, very small, and now it is very international. And there is it doesn't really matter which country, it doesn't really matter which specialty, it doesn't really matter which organization you're attached or member in. It is about fellowship programs. If you have a fellowship program, no matter which country, which association, you can add it. Also, fellowship, people who are looking for fellowships, they can join, and they can contact the fellowship provider directly. So they don't even contact my fellowship.
Amazing. So that's a great tool for surgeons who are looking out for fellowships. And I mean, it's a great resource. It's a Wikipedia for for such surgeons. Amazing. So next was your book that I saw. And what is your book about?
Yeah, so that's also one thing which I discovered during my fellowship. And I have like 3 books now. So the very first
Oh,
book was a roadmap to Australian fellowship, because I saw the whole of the paperwork, all of the steps I had to take to get to Australia to do my fellowship. So it took me like 6 months of continuous paperwork. And then I said, okay, a lot of steps I had to redo because I did it at the wrong time, or wrong information, or not enough information. So I had to redo stuff and send in countries, and it takes a lot of time. So I said, if we put all of that to one book, telling people, okay, I got accepted to Australia, what should I do next? And all of the steps, one by hand. So it is like take you by hand
wow.
and take you step by step to get to Australia. So that was my first book. And after that, finishing my fellowship, finishing my training, and being a consultant, then I started to say, okay, how can you create your own career success? What do you need when you are a medical student? So I divided it into 5 stages: medical student, then medical intern, then a residency, then a fellow, and then a fellowship trained consultant. And during each of these stages, you need different skills, you need different networking, you need different information, you need different guides. And my second book, The Swiss Made Egyptian, it
That's
was
so
about that. It's
amazing.
guiding medical students or residents or fellows through their career and how to help them make their own success path. My third
Amazing.
book, which is coming now in 3 weeks, which is going to be
Okay.
out. This is
Okay. Great. Wow. That's an accomplishment. Third book. Wow.
thank you. This is a different bridge which I was
Okay.
trying to build between doctors and patients. The problem which I see, or we all do, that we do research, we publish this, and all of our patients cannot really read or understand our publications. So I tried for shoulder patients to write them in very simple language. What are the most common causes of shoulder problems and symptoms? And through this very simple language, no complicated descriptions, simple anatomy. We had original illustrations. We had 32 new drawn illustrations, very simplified for the anatomy, for the diseases, what's a slab lesion, what's arthritis, what's instability, how to diagnose it, then what is the treatment options, then operation, if there is an operation, what are the operating options? When you get operating, what is the follow-up? What is your post-operative physiotherapy regime? How are you gonna do with your shoulder? So we try to put all of the information to guide patients together in the first half of the book. And the second half was getting patients actually to understand the medical system. How does the medical system work? To get patient happy, it's not only surgeon and patient. There are a lot of other co-factors, and the infrastructure, the right implants, the right physiotherapy, right secretary, the insurance, and
exactly. It goes on.
We defined 11 factors which really influence you directly through your disease or when you have a problem with your shoulder, and how to get to pass this problem and go on with your life.
Wow. So this is coming up next.
This is coming up in 3 weeks.
Wow.
It's going to be published.
That's amazing.
First version is in German. So it's like for the German speaking community. Hopefully sometime it's going to be in English as well, but now it's in German.
That's okay. I mean, English will come sooner or later. Yeah. Okay, great. This was amazing. And the audience will definitely like these 3 resources. I would specifically suggest to go for my fellowship platform and look out for yourself. Whichever fellowships can be useful, irrespective of the branches or the specialties that you are in. So I love your principle, which is the Pareto principle. Definitely, it's a universal principle, but the way you applied it to your life is amazing, because that's how it should be. But a lot of people don't even know about this principle. So could you just elaborate on this principle as a surgeon?
Exactly. Thanks a lot. Pareto is actually an economist. So he was a professor for economy in Switzerland. So he was here, he came from Italy, and he was teaching economy, and then he started to look into actually the numbers in Italy. So he looked into the income and the production, the GDP of the whole of Italy. And he found out, surprisingly, that actually 80% of the GDP comes from 20% of the people working.
Right.
And that was like for him, like a mind-blowing fact. I was like, okay, how come is this? And then he started to go deeply and look into, okay, if he look at wealth, how many people in Italy own the money for the Italy? And then he found like, okay, 20% of the people own 80% of the whole wealth of the
right.
Italy. And then he started getting this principle in the whole world and looking after it in the different companies, in different structures, in different university hospitals. And then he found also 80% of the research published every year is coming from 20% of the institutes. So it was like very interesting. Yeah, and they like started and studying and applying to different specialities, and the rule applied almost everywhere, and that's why it was called then the Pareto Principle. So it was by chance when he found it out, and then people tried and researched it and then found it. And then when you look at you or yourself, for you as a person, also with 20% of your effort, you can achieve 80% of the results. But the unanswered question was for me, okay, how do you achieve 100%? I mean, we don't want to do like 80% thing. As a doctor, as a surgeon, you cannot like do 80% of the operation. I said, okay, the rest we'll do it later.
Very true.
So we try to achieve 100% of whatever task we have. And that's why I started like collaborating with different people, getting the expertise and getting help. All of it. Lots of people think like, I will do everything by myself.
It doesn't happen.
It doesn't happen.
No.
And you will get burnout. I mean, there's no way you can do everything by yourself. So what I tried when I apply this to my life is like, have a good team, invest a lot of time finding the good people to work with, invest time in your relations, invest time with your employees, with your assistants, with your co-workers, with your residents, with your other consultants, with your head of the department, research collaboration. I mean, we do this, we do apply it in our life, but we need to do it also not only in research, but also in our own private life. Yes, get assistance, ask for help. Nobody can do everything. I mean, whatever project I start, the first thing I think about, okay, what can I do in this project? And what is the things which I cannot do well? Not that you can also do stuff. I mean, you can do graphic design, you can go yourself and learn Photoshop and start designing stuff by yourself. But it's going to take you maybe 2-3 years to get a graphic nice. And then why don't you find somebody who's an expert in graphic design and he can give you a logo or your design within 2 hours of work?
Very true.
So this is the value of communicating, connecting. Now we have a lot of tools which make this much easier. Even when I started with mixed reality, I mean, I contacted Bruno Gobato in Brazil, John Erickson in the USA, me here, Thomas Gregory in France. So they have been there before. They have been using this technology before that. So why do you have to start from scratch? There's nothing wrong in telling them, hey guys, I'm starting from zero. I have no idea. Please help me. They are more than happy to help you. And whenever I have a project, you talk to the others and then see who can do it the best and then learn from them. The same is with my fellowship or how the number of fellowships. I did 5 fellowships myself when I started, and then the very first one was basic research. Went to Berlin Charité to learn basic research. Spent 1 year there, pipetting in the lab and doing Western blot and ELISA and all of this stuff, which like I only read about it in the books. How are you going to do it? How are you going to learn it if you don't go and do it? There's no problem. You just start as a student, you stay there 8 hours in the lab. There's no problem about it. And then when I wanted to learn clinical research, so I did the AO Foundation Fellowship, the AOCID Fellowship in Dübendorf. When 4 months, I was there day and night doing clinical research to learn it. And then shoulder surgery is not different. When I started doing shoulder surgery, I spent 1 year in Sydney, 6 months in Brisbane, plus my residency training with Professor Gerber in Zurich. And then you build on it, And then I went, after finishing my proper training and fellowship, it doesn't stop. I went everywhere, USA, Canada, France, Germany, Brazil, to learn more and meet the people. There is a new operative technique developed. Then go and talk to the people who develop this technique if you wanna use it. See how they do it. They have a huge backpack, lots of tips and tricks, which you can take for free once you visit them and stay with them and learn from them. We all want to help and teach others, because what's the value of your knowledge if you cannot spread it to the others? So connect to the people, learn from them, ask for help. They can. What's the worst thing can happen? They say, no, I have no time.
That's it.
Then ask somebody else. That's no problem. Just get help always. Whenever you don't know something, ask people who know it and they will help you.
Wow, loved it. Thank you very much. I think the audience will love it too. And so with that, I'll ask you something about the present scenario. How has surgery changed or how has it been impacted during these COVID times? Because the pandemic has been really bad at the moment and still is ongoing.
Yes, we have a lot of restriction. I mean, we had at the beginning, like last year in 2020, in March, we had the proper lockdown, even for hospitals and surgery for 6 weeks. So we didn't operate on anybody for 6 weeks long, because we didn't know in which direction it's going. The intensive care units were busy, so we had to stop everything. And after that, during that time, it was very interesting to see, okay, how many people actually come to the emergency room. And then it was very interesting that, like, okay, 90% of the patients disappeared.
Right.
All of these diseases, they just disappeared. So it was really fun working in the emergency room, because you had, as orthopedic surgeon, you had patients only who really did have something to operate on and to fix. And all of those who are for small injury or something, they didn't come. So it was a very efficient time to work on the emergency. And then after that was finished and we reopened the operating theaters. So it is a bit hard for the patients, because there are no visits anymore allowed, no support. There is a bit of more distance between doctor and patient. You have a mask, patient has a mask. You have a distance. They have nobody when you get to the operation, to the hospital. They are really alone. So it was for the nurses and for people working for the hospital, they have to be like more supportive and spend a bit more time with the patient, because patients are a bit more isolated.
Yeah, they're apprehensive also because of that.
Yeah. So that was a major change. And also on the other hand, it was all of the visitors and fellows and teaching opportunities all got reduced. We moved all to digital platforms and Zooming and
yeah, I know, everything changed. The entire world kind of got into Zoom, or you can say into the virtual world now.
Yes. So I think it is helpful. This is also one of the advantages of the technology. So it's not only bad using technology. I mean, we all now profited from it, and we also like, okay, there was also other opportunities to do meetings and to do trainings. I don't think it's possible to replace proper training with any simulation or with any technology, but it is supportive. It supports us. It reduces distances, and it helps us and our residents and our patients at the end of the day.
Right. So what is your message to the orthopedic surgeons out there? Because it's going to be like across the world. Many people will hear you here. So what is your message?
3 words: never stop learning.
Wow. Amazing. Yes.
Go ahead, do it, learn, ask for help, learn from everybody. There is nothing wrong about saying, I don't know this, I want to go and learning, travel, go visit the people in your country, around your country, abroad, whatever you can. There is whatever we know, it's statistically insignificant in the amount of knowledge available. So you are always learning.
So that was amazing. Never stop learning. So where should people follow you now?
Actually, yeah, they can find me on LinkedIn. They can find my own website. They can find me on Instagram, on Facebook. I have also pages on LinkedIn and on Facebook where I post regularly about shoulder surgery, about the diseases, about treatments, most common diseases. My platform, myfellowship.com. If they are interested in doing a fellowship, they are most welcome to join. My own fellowship program, glad to announce it for the first time that it is starting next year in May, and it will be announced soon. We are welcoming 3 fellows per year. Each fellow can stay 4 months, and it is a sponsored fellowship, so they don't even have to pay
for it
to stay. And
wow. So that's amazing. Now there is another announcement for people. So that's the fellowship coming in. Of course, I'll add the links there on the show notes page. People can go through the link and follow you, can connect with you and find what is useful for them. And definitely there will be something or the other to learn for sure.
Sure. And if they have questions, just ask.
Of course, of course. So thank you very much, Dr. Mohy, for coming in and announcing your fellowship and sharing so many resources here. Thank you very much.
Thanks a lot, Dr. Rushi. Thanks a lot.